Hey, it's Luke from Friday, and I wanted to quickly walk you through something that I just saw pop up, and I think it's like massively interesting. It fits very, very neatly into this idea that I've been kicking around, and when I saw this, I felt inclined to record a video kind of breaking down what's happening. So, long story short, today is the 28th of July, and the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, wants New York workers back in the office by Labor Day. Let's ignore the rest of the article. But the basic idea is the governor recently, and I'll play his exact remarks, so I'm not paraphrasing too much. But basically, the idea is he's really pushing businesses and employers to encourage their staff to come back into the office. And he built a case, which I'm going to play the video, so I'm not going to get too much into it. But he basically built a case saying, hey, you need to be bumping into people. You need to be, all together in the same room if you want to maximize creativity. So let's play this clip really quick before I kind of dive into some commentary, because there's something kind of happening beneath the surface that I think is massively important, especially I believe if you live in a city like New York. Because I think there's some pretty enormous implications. So here we go. Here's the clip where he talks about it.
This is going to take everyone working together. And to my private sector friends, I want to say you have to be part of this. Everyone has to be back to the office. I understand remote learning. I understand the trepidation, but the numbers are down. We know how to do this safely. We need private sector companies to say to their employees, I need you back in the office. Remote learning for a short period of time, remote working for a short period of time, fine. But that's not how the entrepreneurial economy works. And that's not how the entrepreneurial spirit works. It's the synergy, it's the stimulation. It's having people in a room banging around ideas. It's the dynamic that is generated, that I don't care what you say about Zoom, it's just a different experience. We need people coming back. We can do it safely, we can do it smartly. Let's pick Labor Day as a date. Say to your workforce, by Labor Day, everyone is back in the office.
I think you get the point. So the reason why I thought it would be useful to record a video is because this kind of fits in with this idea that I've been kicking around. I wish I wrote about it earlier. But the basic idea is that we're seeing enormous vacancy rates, and this can have some huge implications for city centers like New York City. So let me show you some data to kind of back this up and kind of lay a groundwork first. So the first thing is that I would encourage you to think about it kind of a few different ways. The first is that you have of the office space that is being leased, how much of that is being used, right? If a lease exists, how often are people using the space? So that's kind of part one. Part two is, what is the vacancy rate of existing space, right? That's unoccupied space. And so I think there's two pieces to really, really pay attention to. The first is, let's look at the occupancy report. So this is a weekly occupancy report from Castle Systems. Basically, my understanding is they keep track of this through data and sensors, and they have been measuring this for a while, probably because it's good marketing for them. But you can see here that across 10 cities as of the 21st of July, on average, we're seeing about a 35% weekly occupancy by employees. And so I think here's the first thing. It's weekly occupancy. So if you register once, maybe I'm wrong, but if you register once over the course of a week, you would be counted. This does not look at daily occupancy, right? So this is basically ignoring the reality of a potential hybrid work model where you have people coming into the office 1-2 days a week, right? This is basically saying if you show up at least once a week, we will count you. But look at this. It's 35%. So most of the time, people are not going back to the office. And like, look at what's happening. Let me see if I can find it. Look at New York. It's almost at the bottom of the list. I think I could probably look on this page and figure it out, but it's like 20%. It maybe is 20%, a little bit more than 20%, let's say. So they're at the bottom of the list here. And so it only makes sense if you're the governor, if you're the mayor of New York City, to be concerned, right? Look, here it is, 24 to 24.5%. So we're barely, like, New York metro area is barely moving. It's moving up maybe, let's say, 0.5% a week. That's like not good. And so it's very clear from my perspective that there are people that are really giving the governor a call and saying, hey, like, you need to do everything that you can to encourage people to go back to the office. Think like the commercial real estate brokers, because the writing is on the wall here. So if a meaningful amount of people are just not going back to the office, that means that there's just there are some serious economic implications, right? Because if you're a local restaurant near the office and you're losing the majority of, those people that go into the office who buy lunch, maybe you go out of business. If you are a transportation provider, you're struggling. If you basically support the people that go into the office, that is like, this has been such a huge part of cities, right? It could be leisure, it could be travel, it could be food and dining. And so when you see such a low occupancy rate, it's bad. It's really bad. It's bad enough where the governor says something about it and really pushes for it, even in the middle of, this Delta variant. So, I think an idea I've been kicking around for a while is this idea that when the implications of remote work really kick in, when you see this turnover in office space, when you see the occupancy rating go up, I've kind of held this belief that local politicians will encourage businesses, will encourage people, almost like a civic duty. Like, you need to go back to the office, because if you don't support those businesses, if you don't go back, then like our city will cease to be that city that you remember. Right? So here's another thing. To get back to a point I made earlier, you have the percentage of people who go to an office that is already being rented or leased. But like, here's also what's happening. Here's another article. This is more along the lines of why empty offices aren't being turned into housing. Let me see if I can find this article. Here we go. So high office vacancy rates are plaguing cities nationwide, according to Avis & Young, commercial real estate firm. Yada, 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 in the second quarter of this year. Then it gets into New York City. New York City is at a post-2000 high of 19.2% vacancy. So this right here, I think, is the canary in the coal mine. So you have the people with the leases, and keep in mind, commercial leases are, my understanding is they can be many years, like 7 to 10 years, sometimes longer. So you don't see this turnover as fast. Maybe people sublease, but a lot of companies, like if the lease doesn't end for a couple of years, you're kind of stuck, right? But what you are seeing is that there is a vacancy rate that is happening. So not only do you have fewer people going back to the office, utilizing the space, but you also see a rise in the vacancy rate. And so I think these two things combined are really, really bad for cities. And so if here's my takeaway for you. If you live in a city right now, I believe personally, and we'll see if I'm right or if I'm wrong, but I believe that the best days of a city are behind it, at least for a few years. Because this massive trend of working from anywhere, living where you want, maybe going into the office in New York City one day a week, seems like it's here to stay. And so what that means, I believe, is that cities will need to reconfigure. Those office buildings may become rentals. So if you own a condo or if you rent in a city, I would anticipate a couple things. One is that over time, this commercial real estate will become unlocked and will be converted to residential living. So if you own a condo or something, you may see more supply hitting the market. Maybe your place isn't as valuable as it used to be. Maybe it is, I don't know. If you're renting, perhaps it means that rent is not as expensive because there's more supply. If you work in commercial real estate, I don't know what to tell you. This doesn't look good. Seems like, the rise of hubs and offices outside of cities and smaller areas, like suburban areas, seems very likely at this point. I don't think people certainly still want to meet up. They still want the social interaction. But there's no doubt in my mind that things have changed. And this data that we're starting to see, I anticipate we will see a lot more politicians like Cuomo calling on businesses, calling on residents to go back to the office out of civic duty. So this is just something I think it's really important to think about and internalize, even if you are renting or own like a condo in a city. So I hope this was useful, and feel free to leave me a comment. I welcome your perspective. Thanks.